I figured you were like 25.
Oh, let me take off 4 years right here. This really puts me in the teens. I mean, without it. Without the beard, I'm in the teens. I can play teens. Okay.
Is this doing audio too?
Oh, you have no clue how sensitive that is right there.
Is that, yeah, I'm just curious. That's pretty cool.
I'm going to have to turn down the levels.
Oh, cool.
Unless you talk
Yeah,
really,
actually, it's not.
you're going to have to talk super quiet for me to leave it on normal levels. But I'm not asking you to do that.
It's a little, there's just a little bit of ambience here, but that's not so bad. Oh, man. Oh, man.
I'm sorry I have to say this, just because you've done this a million times. You know how it works.
Okay.
But I just have to point out, please answer in complete sentences.
Okay, because you're gonna ask me
Yeah.
a question, so I should restate the question. Got it.
My teachers told us specifically.
But I thought that. So we're not going to be on camera together.
Nope. And you're gonna look at me, so I'm gonna aim this camera so you're not quite so much looking at me.
And tell me, like, do you want me to? How much do you want me to talk? Do you want me to like go off, or do you want me to? Or these?
Yeah, I've got a 128 gigabyte micro SD card in here. You can go for miles, but you're the one who. But you can't do it. But you can't do it because you're the one who said you have something to do.
Yeah, but not until have to leave here at like 1, so we have an hour and 20 minutes. That's a lot.
You go on as long as you feel you have to, and you can.
Because if it was going to be like a 5-minute piece, then I would try to keep.
Ultimately, I'm going to have to do that.
Right.
Because she limited us to 10 minutes.
So should I?
But I'm gonna take as much from you as I can.
Right, but should I try to keep it kind of concise?
No, I'm gonna promote the hell out of the full version.
Okay, cool.
Just because I'm doing 5 minutes for class doesn't mean I can't conduct a real interview. Put that out there on the web and say, hey, these two guys from the Everly Project and the Losers Lounge who are having their anniversary. Why shouldn't I be able to do that with this footage? It's my footage.
Yeah.
She can't tell me what not to do with it.
Okay. I got my acapella shirt on for you and everything.
Oh, you look at me, so I'm...
Okay. Oh, so should I'm looking at you, right?
You're looking at me.
Yeah.
So, who are you?
My name is Sean Altman. Yes, the Sean Altman.
Yeah, no. My directing actors for the camera class teacher would probably ask, "Oh my God, are you related to Robert Altman?"
No relation to famous film director Robert Altman, sadly. And no relation to the department store B. Altmans. Just the humble son of a school teacher and a college professor.
Who are your parents?
My parents are both from Brooklyn, Williamsburg and Bensonhurst. I went to Brooklyn College. I don't want to give my. They don't need to know.
Okay. So it was your father that taught or your mother that taught?
My mom taught first grade in Yonkers for 30 years. My dad taught physics for University of Massachusetts for 35 years.
And also, who are you?
I couldn't hear what you said.
Yeah, I'm gonna edit this anyway. So
I couldn't hear what you said.
Just give me a pause before you answer.
Okay.
So I can get the good edit. Who are you? Say humongous.
Okay. I have a lot of different projects. I do a comedy song act called Sean Altman's Jumongous. I have I'm in the vocal group called the Groove Barbers, which stemmed from my 11 years in the vocal group Rockapella. I have an Everly Brothers tribute act called the Everly Set. I'm part of the Losers Lounge tribute series in New York, and I just finished an album with my friend Patty Rothberg, an album of duets called Dragon Meets Phoenix.
I remember that project.
Yeah.
That was where you did Dick About Me, right?
No. Dick About Me was Sean Altman.
And then who was the woman who... Never mind.
Oh, I mean, online? Denny Bonet, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was on her talk show.
I'm sorry. So, when did you first touch an instrument?
Ooh, wow. I started guitar lessons when I was maybe 9 years old, but I only played for probably a year because the guy was trying to teach me classical guitar scales, and all I really cared about was pop music. So then I played violin for 4 years, from maybe age 10 through 13. Never developed a vibrato, and I don't know if you're familiar with the sound of the violin, but the violin without the vibrato is horrible to listen to. So I gave it up, but I learned enough to give me an appreciation for classical music, and I learned how to read music. Then, in the absence of being proficient at any instrument, I started to sing, because singing was always my first love. And in grade school, I got leads in a few musicals, particularly Bye Bye Birdie, and another one, Pippin. And by the time I got to college, all I wanted to do was sing.
My mother got me a gigantic electric piano when I was younger. Hated it. Always wanted to play the sax. Never got the opportunity. That instrument captivated me. So, let's see. Where did you start as a genre? As in, what genre did you first start with when you after the guitar? When you came into your own thing and you started doing what you wanted to do, what was the first genre for you?
My first influences were folk music, like Peter, Paul and Mary, Simon and Garfunkel, and the Beatles. So when I first started performing professionally, I was in a duo with David Yazbek, who's now one of the kings of Broadway as a composer. And he and I were in a teen duo in high school called Moon Pudding. And we were doing Simon and Garfunkel, Beach Boys, some Beatles, and a lot of David Yazbek's original music. So that was my first fling with professional musicianship, and that when I was only 16. And we were doing clubs and some school performances. And then I followed him to Brown University, and we kept the act going there. And by the time I got to Brown, I'd already done 50 club shows around New York City, and I was somewhat seasoned by while I was still in my teens.
You just stole a lot of questions from me. So you've always known Mr. Yazbek. You've always been friends with him?
I met David Yazbek in high school when I was 16 and he was 17. I was a junior and he was a senior. And we had a mutual friend, David Sticks, who said, "Oh, you guys both like to sing. Why don't we try to do some a cappella trios?" And I didn't know anything about a cappella, but we put together some sort of simple doo-wop and barbershop stuff. And we won a talent contest with a 3-song repertoire. We were known as the Glee 3. And we did "Rock My Soul in the Bosom of Abraham." And we did a version of a song from Hair called "What a Piece of Work Is Man, How Noble in Reason." Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just totally blew that. Now you're gonna have to. I can't use that because I screwed it up.
And
One from the 3, 2.
And a song from Hair, which was a musical retelling of a Shakespeare poem. What a piece of work is man, how noble in reason. And also like a doo-wop thing from Sha Na Na called Lover's Question. Does she love me with all her heart? So with those 3 songs, we won a talent contest. And that was the first time I had kind of collaborated with David Yazbek. Within a year, we were doing clubs around New York City. And strangely, the 2 of those guys, David Sticks and David Yazbek, they went to Brown University, and they they enticed me to apply to Brown. I got into Brown, and David Sticks was one of the original Hijinks members who inducted me into my first college a cappella group, the Hijinks. So those two guys were very instrumental in my career, and I met them both in high school.
Give me.
Led to something else. All right. Where were we? I forgot. Oh.
So did I. So, back. That's where my head of orange screw on. So yeah, thanks for telling me to turn on the sun. I'm sure you're boiling over there. So we were saying Yazbek's been with you since the beginning. Has that been a constant to some point?
David Yazbek.
Were there gaps in your relationship?
So David Yazbek and I, we started working together in high school, and then we worked together for the first couple of years of college. He's a year older than I am. So then while we were in college, he started writing musicals, and I was sort of doing more rock and roll stuff. But then right after college, he became Rockapella's first record producer with a guy named Billy Strauss, who incidentally wrote that song. I've been lonely, I've been cheated, I've been misunderstood. It's called A Change in My Life, which is now like an a cappella standard. So Yazbek and Billy were Rockapella's first record producers.
First fans.
Well, no, then, we had already, we were playing around.
No, technically he's not a fan because he's part of it.
Yeah. So, but I pretty much worked, consistently with him, and we've been friends for years. And then when Rockapella got on Carmen, Sandiego in 1991, they asked us to write a theme song. And so we all went home and, put down our ideas. And I had this idea for the theme song. I still have the original demo that I wrote, that I sang into my answering machine in 1991. It was, or 1990 when we were working on it. It was, well, she sneaks around the world from Kiev to Carolina. Tell me where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? On a jet plane to New York or a slow boat to China? Tell me where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? So I had like that idea and a couple of others. And I went to the best songwriter I knew, my friend David Yazbek, and I said, hey, I've got a couple of ideas. Which of these is the best? And he said, this is the one to work on, and I'd love to work with it on you. And I was flattered and also excited because he was a bona fide songwriter, and I was just kind of getting my feet wet, even though I was already, in my 30s. So he and I fleshed out that song and that arrangement. And there you go. So then Yazbek and I ended up writing this iconic theme song.
Did you ever end up putting them all out somehow?
Say it again?
In CD or cassette form, maybe?
Did I ever do what?
Yeah, when I like a song or I like a group or a singer, at some point I'll actually look up their demos. I have an old vinyl of Ozzy Osbourne's Walk on Water demo.
Oh, wow.
Just because I like that song so much. So is there anywhere people could hear your early cuts of that?
Somewhere I have the original telephone answering machine tape, which is one of those little micro cassettes. And I remember I was on the corner of, it was either 23rd and 3rd or 34th and 3rd. I know it was a major cross street, and I had this idea, and I stopped at a payphone and called my answering machine in 1990. Somewhere I have that. And then also I have Yazbek's and my first demo. And I should release that. That would be an interesting thing to have on YouTube. But I have not released it.
Please find it.
Yeah.
The world wants to hear it. So let's go back, because I feel like you skipped over a major thing, which is acapella. Where'd that come from?
So I get to Brown University. I'm 18, and David Sticks, whom I had gone to high school with, and he was a bass singer. He as soon as he got up to Brown, he was inducted into the only male a cappella group at Brown University at the time, the Brown University Hijinks. And he told the guys in the group, hey, there's a guy who's coming next year, Sean Altman. I sang with him in high school. If there's a spot for him next year, let's please hold a spot for him. So they delayed having auditions in the spring because they knew that I was coming. And sure enough, they accepted me into the group. So I got up to Brown, and within a few weeks, I was in the only college a cappella group on campus. So it was an incredible treat for me. And also I was really learning how to sing a cappella. So
wish I could get in somewhere on pure hype.
Well,
nobody loves me that much.
So in that group were Carmen, who ended up being one of the founders of Rockapella with me, David Sticks, who ended up being one of the founders of Rockapella with me, and then the next year, a guy named Steve Kais joined the group, and the four of us ended up founding Rockapella after we had all graduated from college.
God, I like Kai's voice.
So we graduated from college. It's 1984, and Steve Kais, David Sticks, Elliot Carmen, and we started singing on the street as Rockapella, and our first gigs were on Columbus, the corner of Columbus and 74th. There was a Haagen-Dazs there, and we would plant ourselves in front of the Haagen-Dazs ice cream parlor in the summer, and people would be coming in and out of the ice cream shop, and we would sing barbershop and persuasions arrangements for them for quarters, and then we would take all the quarters and go around the corner to Hunan Cottage and order Chinese food and pay for the whole meal in quarters.
Money's money.
Humble beginnings. So then Rockapella formed, and we were doing it just for fun. I was in an original rock band called Blind Dates, kind of a new wave pop band. We all had crazy hair. You know, I started having the braids, and it was, you know, it was right around the time of Duran, so it was all, you know, we were wearing eye makeup, and it was like two black guys and two white guys, and everybody had these kind of weird mullet, extravagant hairdos and big shoulder pads, and we never got signed.
Don't do this to me.
But we were on.
You're taking me back to that when you got cut.
We were on.
It was sad.
We were on MTV Basement Tapes, which was an MTV video showcase for unsigned bands. So we were on that. So that was a big deal at the time. But then, as that band was petering out after we never got signed, Rockapella started doing private parties and bar mitzvahs, doing some local TV shows, and all of a sudden Rockapella was making some money, basically doing the bar mitzvah circuit and singing at fancy dinner parties. We were wearing, you know, bow ties and little, you know, black tuxedos, singing at fancy dinner parties on the Upper East Side for rich people. And at one of those dinner parties was Kathy Lee Gifford, and Regis and Kathy Lee had a morning show called The Morning Show. It was just a regional show, and then she saw us at one of these dinner parties, and she said, "Hey, I'd love to have you guys on the show." So then we started doing regional television, and then Regis and Kathy Lee became a national show, and they invited us to do a couple of appearances on there. So all of a sudden we were doing some sort of national TV spots. Usually we would do Zombie Jamboree, which is an old Calypso standard that I arranged for the Hijinks and then for Rockapella. And we were doing like kind of doo-wop stuff, persuasions arrangements. And then our big break happened when I ran into a college friend on the street. And she said, "Yeah, I'm working in TV now, and a friend of mine is producing an a cappella TV special." And she was telling me about it, and it seemed like it was kind of homegrown. And she said, "Oh, you should give me one of your demos." And I didn't have a demo, so I didn't really follow up. And then I ran into her 6 months later, and she said, "Yeah, you know, we're still working on that show, and now Spike Lee's going to be the host of it. And then my eyes popped open, because when she first told me about it, it sounded like it was nobody was involved. And all of a sudden, Spike Lee was involved. This was back in the early 90s when She's Gotta Have It had just come out. Spike Lee was, he was considered the new Woody Allen at the time. And so I immediately got her our demo. And next thing I know, the producers of Spike Lee and Company Do It a cappella, which was a show, a documentary for PBS, Great Performances, was in production. And they were coming to see us at clubs, trying to decide whether they should have us on the show. They came to see us maybe 4 or 5 times at comedy clubs and then a couple of cabaret clubs downtown, and they took us into the show. And we ended up being the only white group on the show. It was Rockapella, the Persuasions, who were our idols. And the Persuasions are the godfathers of acapella from Brooklyn. Take Six, who had already won a bunch of Grammys for jazz and gospel. A British group called True Image, a kind of a modern doo-wop group with a beatboxer called True Image. And the other group, the British group, was totally forgot. And then the group that had backed up Paul Simon on his Graceland album, Ladysmith Black Mambazo. So there were 3 bona fide legendary a cappella groups on this show: Ladysmith Black Mambazo, Take Six, and the Persuasions. And then there was Little Old Rockapella. Excuse me. So it was a huge break for us, especially since we sort of stood out because we were the only comedic group and we were the only white group. So maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure. We stood out that we were the only white group. And then that show aired, and Elektra Records put out our recording of Zombie Jamboree as the single from the soundtrack album to that TV special, Spike Lee and Company Do It a cappella. So then we were doing some promotional appearances for Elektra Records, and then the phone rang, and it was the director of a TV show in production called Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. They were just making the pilot. And Dana Calderwood, the director, said, "Hey, there's a computer game called Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and I'm directing the pilot of a live-action game show. I saw you guys on Spike Lee and Company Do It a cappella. Would you like to come and audition to be the house vocal group?" And my first thought was, wow, it's a kids' TV show. We had done bar mitzvahs. Kids did not like us. We were always hired to sing for the grown-ups. The kids would make fun of us. They would jeer at us because we were doing like doo-wop from the 50s and barbershop music from the turn of the century. Kids would leer, jeer, and make fun of us at these bar mitzvahs. So, but we thought we have nothing else going on. So we agreed to audition, and we got the gig. And next thing we know, we're in production for this kids' TV show, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. And then that's when they asked us to write the theme song. I had the theme song idea. I brought it to my seasoned songwriter friend David Yazbek. He and I worked on the song, made the demo. They liked it. It was accepted. Then the producers liked the song so much that they decided to end each episode with Rockapella singing the theme song on camera, and it was the perfect combination of factors: a catchy theme song, us singing it on camera, the whole audience dancing on the map to us singing it, and the song became a hit.
How often did they swap out that map?
Well, they did it for every continent. So we would do like a week of Africa, and then a week of Europe, and then a week of North America. Each season, there were 5 seasons. Each season, we were in production for maybe 6 to 8 weeks, maybe a little longer. Maybe it was 3 months. I'm not sure. And the first day of shooting, we would get 1 episode done, and the second day of shooting, we would get 2 episodes done. By the end of the first week, we'd be doing 5 episodes a day, and then we would do 5 episodes a day.
You'd have a month worth in the can a week.
Yeah, and then so we would basically do an entire season, 60 or 70 episodes over the course of several weeks.
God, television is fun.
Yeah.
See this right here?
Yeah.
I'm still right here.
What is that?
The end of this leg. I'm still right here. I'm just gonna get another perspective.
Okay. Am I still looking at you though?
You're still looking at me.
Oh man. Oh, you're that leg. Okay, I got it. Okay.
When you did Carmen Sandiego on a regular basis, how you said you did a whole bunch of episodes a day, but how many production meetings were there production meetings per episode or per group of episodes? I'm really asking about the technical side here.
Yeah. When we first started shooting Carmen Sandiego, we had all these production meetings because the show was being formed around us, and they didn't know what we could contribute. We didn't know what was expected of us. But one thing that we knew was that they wanted us to provide all the music. So the producer Howard Blumenthal, he said to us, "So in the mid game, when they turn over the warrant, we need you to sing something, to indicate that they've turned over the warrant, some sort of a little sting." And as a joke, I said, "How about the warrant?" And I completely said it as a joke, and he said, "Yeah, that's good." So that's how a lot of Rockapella's music was written.
Well, it's really
just by us goofing around and coming up with stuff on the spot.
It's not really a by Menon.
Right.
That's certainly laziness, but it still works, right?
So while the show was being formed, there were a lot of production meetings about what music we were going to contribute. For example, there was that whole part of the show where the contestant has 30 seconds to write something, and they would play like a concentration music, like instead of down, 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 down. They wanted us to come up with something like that, so we came up with. You think about it, how much you gonna rest? Yeah, 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 yeah. Wow, 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 boo. These were the little things that we would come up with in 1 minute, and they ended up being part of the show for 5 years. So at the beginning, there were a lot of these meetings, but then once the show got up and running, it was, it was kind of on a need-to-know basis. They would say to us, "Okay, today we're going to shoot 3 musical clues, so we need you guys to do 30 seconds of Billy Joel's The Longest Time to these lyrics." And then we would go back into the dressing room, and we would come up with an arrangement of 30 seconds of it, and we would finish it, and we would record it on our little micro cassette recorders, and then later in the day they'd say, "Okay, time to come perform that on camera," and we would do it. So it was a lot of quick and dirty stuff happening, but mostly it was just a lot of repetition. You would do the same routine over again. There was this part called the chase, where the host would say, "Okay, so Carmen has moved on, so let's pick up the chase." And
chase!
Yes, we would sing, "Ooh, the chase," but we would run through the camera.
Set.
And they wouldn't tell us what to do, but we always did something goofy, like we'd pick up whatever props were handy. So if there was a shark's head on the side of the stage, I'd put on the shark's head and run through the set. It was basically just Rockapella was there to clown around and be the comedic shtick between clues, between parts of the show that matter, which is the kids trying to get the answers. So once we got moving, excuse me, there wasn't a lot of full production meetings, or usually the production meeting might be the stage manager coming into our dressing rooms and saying, "Okay, they need you upstairs in 10 minutes to rehearse this one routine," and that was it. So there's so many moving parts to a TV show. I think in the entire 5 years that I was on that show, I was in the control room where the producers and the director hang out maybe twice. That was like the inner sanctum. I wasn't allowed there. I was the talent. I mostly was in my dressing room, drinking coffee, eating bagels, and preparing for whatever routine I had to do. Also in my dressing room, I had a full portable recording studio, and I recorded what would end up being my first solo album, mostly in that Carmen Sandiego dressing room in Queens.
So that just blew my mind. But did they, as far as your involvement anyway, did they actually have production meetings per episode or per block of episodes since you were doing 5 a day?
We weren't part of the big production meetings, so I don't know if they were doing production meetings for each group of shows. Once you're doing 5 shows a day, the schedule is written out really meticulously because every second costs maybe thousands of dollars. So I don't actually know what went on behind the scenes. I was just in my own little behind the scenes. In fact, to show you how valuable each minute of time is when you're shooting, one time, Rockapella, we used to hang out in this alley. That was the place where Rockapella supposedly lived. Like the game show took place in one part of the set, and Rockapella was supposed to be hanging out in the alley. And in the alley was like a fake candy store and a bunch of signs, and we're wearing like these 1940s fedoras and suspenders, and that was the
Pause.
place.
Was it? No, continue your story, but first let me just interject a question.
Yeah.
Was it literally right there as depicted on the show, or was it like 5 or 6 blocks away from the actual the room set where they had the podiums and the board?
Okay. The alley where Rockapella sings in, it was right next to the place where the 3 podiums were.
Okay, so it was literally depicted on TV.
Yeah, in fact.
Because I know some sets you can have one room that's literally like 3 cities over,
yeah, no,
but they depicted as right next to each other.
Yeah, because we would sing. I don't know if you remember how the show was presented at the beginning, but typically Rockapella would sing the beginning of the theme song. Rockapella would start the show singing in the alley. The host would join us, and then he'd walk through the door. And as soon as he walks through that door, he's at the podiums. So literally, they were right next to each other. But we were hanging out in the alley, and at one point we did a musical clue, and there were blackboards on it. And in the alley, on the blackboard, it said things like, because it was supposed to be a candy store there, and it said things like, gum, 1 cent, hot dogs, 5 cents. So one day, as a goof, I took a piece of chalk, and underneath where it said gum, 1 cent, hot dogs, 5 cents, I wrote head, $1. I was just being a jerk, and I didn't think that anybody would know or care. Well, we shot a scene, and then somebody noticed that it said head, $1. And the producers, man, they just ripped me a new asshole. Do you know how much it costs to shoot a scene? It costs like $25,000 for us to shoot a scene. We have to reshoot that scene because of your prank. I mean, that was just because I made a little sex joke on a thing that, God forbid, somebody would see it and zoom in and see that there was a blowjob joke on the blackboard of a kids show. So that's how valuable TV production time is. That's an anecdote you won't hear normally.
No, I have a TV production studio teacher right now who I can imagine his reaction to something like that. He's ready to composing himself when he's pissed, but you know when he's pissed.
There's
He starts to speak slower.
Another thing I can tell you about how valuable production time is that they would always say to us, when you're singing a song on camera, never stop in the middle. If you make a mistake, don't stop in the middle. Finish it and we'll decide if we think it's important to go back and fix it. Well, we knew that the producers and the director, they didn't care about how we sounded. They just were going for their shots. So if we made a vocal mistake that we thought was going to reflect badly on us as musicians, we weren't going to let that thing keep going. So we had a little system that if one of us, while we were singing, made a mistake that we knew would make us sound bad, hit a wrong note, or made a glaring error vocally that we thought would reflect badly on us as a musical group, we would all of a sudden break into a coughing fit. And no one could ever fault you for breaking into a coughing fit. So that was our way of stopping the take if we thought something went wrong. Because God forbid, we'd say like, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. They would get really pissed off at us. So we'd just break into a coughing fit. And they would be annoyed, but they would say, okay, we got to do another one. And then we'd fix it. Hey, so Jordan, just so you know, we have half an hour. Jordan,
I'm still stuck on that head thing. Like, even if they did notice, you know how many millions of ways they could have written that off?
They could have blurred it out. They could have done it. I don't know, but they were just really pissed.
Head of lettuce.
Yeah.
No, nowadays you can just digitally do that.
I know, right.
Okay, now, after Rockapella, of the groups you're currently in, who came first?
Well, should I talk about quitting Rockapella and the transition out of that?
Well, clearly you were. I was going to ask you, I had set aside some time where I was going to go into the whole Jumongous thing, but clearly you were that guy all the time already. We've established you were kind of a jackass already.
Well, let me just talk about. All right, so I was in Rockapella for 11 years. 11 years is a long time to be in any band. Most bands don't even last a year, much less 11 years. But after 11 years, so Carmen Sandiego went off the air after being on the air for 5 years. That was in 1995. 2 years later, I left Rockapella. And it was mostly because I felt like I was coming into my own as a songwriter. I had gotten divorced a few years earlier, and I was writing all this sort of heartfelt, what I thought was sort of edgy material, a lot of which was kind of inappropriate for Rockapella. And it wore on me the fact that for every new song I would write, I'd have to kind of pitch it to the group and try to get everyone's approval to have it accepted into the repertoire, because I thought I was writing the best stuff I had ever written. And just it kind of hurt my feelings that I would submit 7 songs to the group and the group would only accept 5 of them. I wasn't grateful. I was resentful that they had rejected the other 2. So by 1997, I was kind of done. And even though Rockapella was a good living, I decided that this was the only. I was still young enough in my mid-30s to try to have a go at a solo career. So I quit Rockapella. I already had a solo album pretty much in the can, which became my first solo album, Sandiego. So I quit Rockapella in February of 1997, and 6 months later I put out my first solo album and started doing solo shows. I had my first band, and so for the next maybe 5 years I was doing solo shows with my band. I started playing guitar and singing at the same time, which was unusual, because I was, up until then, I wasn't a good enough guitar player to accompany myself. I could just write songs on it, but I couldn't play the thing. And then I started practicing. And then I met up with an old college friend of mine named Rob Tannenbaum. And he had a song called It's Good to Be a Jew at Christmas. And I was hosting a show at the Bottom Line, which is a long-lost, venerable rock club in New York City in the Village. And I was hosting a holiday show, and he said, oh, I've got this song called It's Good to Be a Jew at Christmas. Can I come sing it? So he and I, we sang that song together, and then he and I started collaborating on kind of comedic, secular Jewish material. And we wrote a song called Hanukkah with Monica about the Monica Lewinsky scandal, which was happening right then. It was 1998. And the song got a lot of press and a lot of morning radio airplay. So we formed an act called What I Like About Jew, and we started writing comedic Jewish comedy songs. And so from 1998 till 2007, Rob Tannenbaum and I were performing under the name What I Like About Jew and adding to the repertoire. Eventually we put out an album, and we were selling out nice-sized clubs in New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. We even did some shows out west that did pretty well. And then that act broke up, and I wanted to keep doing Jewish-themed comedy stuff. So I started an act called Sean Altman's Jewmongous. And this was all while still doing Sean Altman solo albums of angst-ridden, Beatles-inflected love songs. So I'm still performing Sean Altman's Jewmongous. I now have 2 albums of original material. I have 3 albums of Sean Altman stuff. About to put out a 4th album. Some former members of Rockapella and I call ourselves the Groove Barbers, and we have 4 albums of a cappella stuff. And I'm in an act called Dragon Meets Phoenix that doesn't really perform, but we recorded an album of pop male-female duets. So I continue to record and perform in many different acts. And my latest is an Everly Brothers tribute act called the Everly Set. My partner in that is a guy named Jack Sculler, who I met in the Losers Lounge tribute series. When he was 14, stop it.
Sorry, I really had to clear my throat there.
Yeah, sure. Jack Sculler and I met at the Losers Lounge tribute series when he was 14 years old. We were paired together to sing the song Mrs. Robinson in the Losers Lounge tribute to Simon and Garfunkel. And we sounded great together. He was 14, but he was really well prepared. And over the next few years, between the time he was 14 and he was 17, we did several duets at the Losers Lounge together, and his voice got deeper. But our blend stayed really good, and I would see him backstage, and he started becoming a really good guitar player. And every time I'd see him backstage at Losers Lounge shows, we would just jam, usually on Everly Brothers songs, because I knew a few of them and he knew a few of them. And then when he was 19, we started occasionally saying, like, oh, we sound really good doing this stuff. Hey, maybe we should put together a night of Everly Brothers songs, just to do it in a club. So we, over the course of 4 or 5 months, we started rehearsing Everly Brothers songs. We put together a repertoire of like 20 Everly Brothers songs. We did them one night in New York for pretty much friends and family. It was like maybe 50 people. And but it went over so well, and we worked so hard getting it together, that I started reaching out to some house concert contacts of mine to say, hey, I've got a new thing. We do Everly Brothers songs. Why don't we do it at your house? So we did a bunch of house concerts, and then we started doing some of these booking showcases where bookers of clubs and festivals and other concert series come and see you perform at a showcase. And we did really well, and we started getting all kinds of gigs. So now it's kind of becoming my main performing outlet. We're doing shows all over the country. We've been to 18 states now. We've been doing it for 3 years. We already know that, for example, next fall, the fall of 2019, which is a year from now, we already have over 20 gigs booked in like a month period, and all in the Midwest. So it started out just being a little side project, and now that's becoming kind of one of my main things. So I continue to sing songs that I wrote, which make me very little money, and songs that I didn't write, which tend to pay the bills.
You just said Losers Lounge anniversary. Which anniversary?
This week, which is December of 2018, is the Losers Lounge 25th anniversary. Losers Lounge started as the band leader Joe McGinty.
Losers Lounge. Yeah, you.
So I've been part of the Losers Lounge tribute series. I've been doing it for 22 years. I started Rockapella, did one or two Losers Lounges when it was at the Fez in the East Village in 1996, and we did a couple of them. And then when I quit Rockapella in 1997, I started becoming one of the featured singers in Losers Lounge, and also singing backup. So I've been one of the three main backup singers since 1996, and one of the featured singers since then. So yeah, it's fun. I've met a lot of people that I've worked with. I met Jack Sculler, who I'm in the Everly set with at the Losers Lounge. My wife, Ina Ducock, she's a professional opera singer. She was a guest at the Losers Lounge tribute to Queen, and from that appearance, she got invited to audition for New York City Opera, and she ended up being featured at Lincoln Center with New York City Opera. So the Losers Lounge has been very influential and an important part of the last 20 years for me.
When Carmen Sandiego ended, and they tried that stupid little time thing, did you guys even get asked?
So, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego ran 5 seasons, from 1991 to 1995. And I've learned this about public television. Apparently, it's harder to get a show refunded, to get it funded for an additional year, than to get new funding for a new show. So even though Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego was a bona fide hit on PBS, after 5 years,
where's the money coming from?
They couldn't get enough money to keep it going. So the producers started a new series called Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego. Some of the same cast. Well, basically one cast member, the chief, Lynn Thigpen, they kept her for continuity. But the host, Greg Lee, and Rockapella, we weren't part of the new show. But they did ask me and David Yazbek to write the theme song. So I wrote the theme song for Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego. So, and we wrote a lot of the interstitial music as well. So I still made some money from that. Even though that show, nobody ever mentions Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego or ever sings that theme song.
Tell me where in time is Carmen Sandiego. Stop her crime and solve this mystery. Tell me where in time.
I have that original demo. That original demo sounds good.
So yes, you're talking to someone right now who did watch it and wondered, where's the back alley of this time, whatever place that I forget how they described where they were.
I have to say, I never saw a full episode of that show. I just had no interest. I didn't really,
Well, it lacks logic, right? Creating a time and a place for jumping around.
Yeah. Also, I liked the song that I wrote, but I wasn't on the show. I didn't really like the sound. I didn't like the way that they had sung the theme song. I liked the way that I had sung the theme song.
Not even the stinger. We're on the case and we're chasing her through history.
I don't know. It just sounded like. I don't know. I like my original demo of the song that Yazbek and I did, and I should put that up on YouTube.
Please,
because that sounds good.
Give it to me.
But still, that was I got paid for it, and now with respect to the theme song, so this is an interesting time that we're shooting this, because by the time this interview comes out, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, the new animated TV series on Netflix, will probably be out, and they're going to use.
I can have this out by the weekend.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't know my skill in Avid.
Okay, all right. So
I'm good at it. I'm a good Avid user.
Sometime in 2019, Netflix is putting out a new animated series, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and then later.
Is it a drama or another game show?
Not a game show.
Because I would wonder how you do animation.
Yeah, it's
I'm
a
sorry.
drama. It's a drama. But they're going to use the theme song in 1 or 2 episodes, and they're going to use the theme song in promotion, but not as the theme song for the show, which was disappointing for me, to say the least. And there's a movie coming out also. Gina Rodriguez does the voice of Carmen Sandiego in the animated series, and she's going to play Carmen in the live action. So Gina Rodriguez is going to play Carmen in the live action movie, which will be out in 2019 or 2020. And hopefully they'll use the theme song in some way.
One thing you didn't really mention about Rockapella, you mentioned everybody. I'm going to mention the person you didn't mention.
Sure.
You didn't mention Carl. Why not?
Oh, Barry Carl?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I did mention Barry. Okay, well...
You specifically didn't, and I specifically kept waiting for it.
I talked about the founders of Rockapella, which were Sean Altman,
Carmen,
Ellie Kerman, Steve Kais, and David Sticks. But the other early members of Rockapella, very much worth mentioning, are Charlie Evett, who was in Rockapella for 2 years after David Sticks left, and who's now in the Groove Barbers with me. And then when Charlie left Rockapella, Barry Carl joined the group, and Barry Carl ended up being the bass that most people associate with Rockapella because he was on Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. After Steve Kais left the group, then Scott Leonard joined. So Steve Kais auditioned for Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, but he didn't want to do the show because he was in law school, and he would have had to have dropped out of law school to stay in the group and be on the show. So he made the decision to pursue a law career, a much more stable career, I might add, than being an independent musician.
Well, like you said, you can have a humongously awesome show that everybody loves, but on PBS, where's the money coming from?
Yeah, but also,
it's unsustainable.
Also, Steve Kais is a very successful lawyer, and he gets to sing for fun, and that's a great situation to be in.
I'm sure if you were on right after Jeopardy instead of Wheel of Fortune, you'd still be on today.
Right. So, and then when Steve left the group, that's when we took in Scott Leonard. So the Carmen Sandiego lineup of Rockapella, that's the lineup that most people remember. Scott Leonard, who's still in Rockapella. Scott Leonard, Sean Altman, Ellie Kerman, and Barry Carl. And then Jeff Thatcher, the vocal percussionist, he joined Rockapella in 1993, and in 1995 he was added to Carmen Sandiego.
I hate to be crass about something that you so love and is such a big part of your life, but I gotta say, at least after you guys left, eventually they found a black guy.
Oh, right. Well, we actually had a black guy before Jeff Thatcher. Our first vocal percussionist was a black guy named Kenny X, who's now he's kind of world famous. If you Google Kenny Muhammad, he's like this, spectacular vocal beatbox savant. Mm-hmm. So Kenny X was our first beatboxer, but he wasn't a good fit for the group because Kenny X was like a one-man show. Like there's footage of Rockapella in Japan on tour with Kenny X, and Kenny X, he's such a spectacular performer, and he's such a magnet. Like when he's on stage, you don't want to look at anyone else except for Kenny X. So, as charismatic as we were no match for Kenny X, because when we were on stage and on video, all you want to do is look at Kenny X. So he wasn't a good fit for the group. He was really. You
were a real group, unlike NSYNC, which was pretty much Justin Timberlake and 4 backup singers, Destiny's Child was Beyonce and 3 backup singers. You're a real group.
Kenny X was such a showman, and that he wasn't really a team player, and we needed a team player at the time. So after that tour of Japan with Kenny X as our beatboxer, we held other auditions because he just wasn't a good fit for the group. He was fantastic, but he wasn't a good fit for the group. You know, part of being in a band is the chemistry of who works well together. You know, Kenny X, you know, we wanted someone who was just going to lay down the beat and be a, you know, we wanted Ringo Starr, someone who just lays down the beat and isn't flashy. And Kenny X was doing all kinds of weird vocal shit that was dazzling, but it wasn't a good fit for rockapella at the time. So, but I wanted to point out that our first beatboxer was a black guy. So.
Okay, now. Shit, I forgot. I had an important question about Carmen Sandiego again. Oh, yeah. Who were you? Remind me what network you were specifically tied to?
Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah. Well, I know
PBS.
Learn to Read was specifically tied to WKEC in Kentucky. Okay. But I know you were specifically tied to a Philadelphia station, right?
No, Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
So, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego was a co-production of WQED Pittsburgh and WGBH Boston.
Mm-hmm.
So we were taking orders from basically, you know,
Pittsburgh and Queens.
From Pittsburgh and from Boston.
You ever do the opera stuff?
Did I ever sing opera?
With Rena.
With Ina?
I'm sure she's involved in your music. Are you involved in hers?
So my wife Ina Dukak, she's a professional opera singer, and she performs with me a lot. We have a repertoire of a lot of pop songs that we sing together, and she sings backup on a bunch of songs on the What I Like About You album and on one of the Jumongous albums. But then Ina and the Groove Barbers have a side project called Do Opera. If you go to doopera.com, you can see 3 videos of the Groove Barbers backing up Ina doing. So the shtick is that Ina sings operatic arias, usually in Italian, and we do a comedic doo-wop background for her. So it sounds better than my description of it.
You can speak of things she's done on your project, but you haven't done anything on her projects?
Well, she sings in big opera houses. They don't want me. So
you could do the Andy Kaufman thing, just like he always just does. Here I come to say during his Mighty Mouse shtick. You could do one thing in a song, like literally one isolated thing, and then walk away.
I know it's funny. You know, my ex-wife is a ballerina, and I saw the Nutcracker so many times that I thought it'd be really funny if I could be Mother Ginger at a production of the Nutcracker. Mother Ginger is one of the only roles in the Nutcracker that doesn't have to dance. Mother Ginger just comes in lifted, on this big skirt under which a bunch of little children hide. And similarly, there's like one role in La Boheme, Puccini's La Boheme, where and it's called Parpignol. He's a toy seller, and he just has to sing one line. And you don't have to be a good singer to sing that line. I think I could sing that line, but no one's ever offered it.
So really, when you were doing the Carmen Sandiego thing, you had no involvement in the technical process? Like you guys never worked with the cameras, or since you weren't allowed in the control room, I know you know nothing about the soundboard or the switcher.
Rockapella was not involved in the technical aspects of Carmen Sandiego at all, except that in the later seasons, we would pre-record some of our musical clues, and we were involved in the mixes, the sound mixes of our recordings. But we were never involved in anything else. Near the end, they trusted us enough that we would contribute some sight gags and things that we never got any writing credit, but I like to think that a lot of the comedic elements of the show that Rockapella was doing anyway were things that we came up with.
I remember a lot of the characters were you guys.
Well, I mean, a lot of the characters, but those were
the animated characters.
Yeah, I mean, those were scripted. They would give us the lines, but just a lot of the a lot of the shtick and even a lot of the music that we wrote. We were credited as music writers, but a lot of this.
So you were furniture basically. You had no involvement in the.
We were the talent. So we were taking orders, but we would come up with suggestions. I mean, it was my idea, for example, to have my braids cut off on camera, which was that was a 5-minute part of one of the episodes. My braids being cut off on national TV, braids that I had worn, that was my actual hair, that would be cut off after 10 years on camera on the last episode of Carmen, Sandiego. Did I get writing credit for that? No.
Did they just throw that away, or did they keep it somewhere?
No, it's the hair?
Yeah.
Oh, I have the hair somewhere. Oh yeah, I got the hair.
Right. Sorry to have taken so long out of your life, but yeah, just give me some B-roll. Give me some B-roll right here, just for like a minute.
Of you? Okay, wait. How do I?
No, just hold it. It's recording, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You should look at me and look pensive. Oh wait, so you're looking. Wait, so if the camera was here, you'd be looking at me. You should look at me. I think you need to do a lot of nodding. You need to get like 30 seconds of nodding and smiling. And I'll get some from this angle. Nodding and smiling. And I just said something incredibly witty. And now I just said something. That'd be funny if the whole interview it cuts back to you and you're like, no matter what I say, you're just like home alone, like. Here. Did I get
See in the corner there? That's how you know it's recorded.
But will you go back? Can you see if I got everything before that?
I don't know, but let's just try. Just keep going.
Wait, this is the.
That's good. That's good.
I'm getting this weird light. Oh yeah. Oh, it looks like we're in a nightclub. All right, but just do the nodding. Do the nodding thing.
I get it. But when... No, I get it.
It really does look like we're in a nightclub. Or it looks like I'm interrogating you in like an FBI office. All right, I am.
Oh, I've seen enough episodes of Law and Order to...
Well, Jordan, the reason why I left Rockapella is that after 11 years of writing songs, doing arrangements, and singing a lot of the leads, I became a petulant diva, overly confident in my own decisions and repertoire, and I was not in a state of mind to be part of a democracy. I couldn't stand voting on things anymore. I pretty much wanted to be the king of the band. And sadly, in a democracy, there are no kings, unless, of course, Vladimir Putin gets involved, and then you could have a king.